Hello everybody, and welcome to my first Blue Protocol Star Resonance video. My name is Key, and I am primarily making this video because I think that the Shield Knight class has a lot to offer in terms of both damage output and fun. And I haven't really seen any other videos covering it, or really any videos about combat and rotations in general, so I figured I would give it a shot. I don't have a script or anything, so probably going to be winging most of this off the top of my head. I have a basic idea of what I want to go through, but for the most part, this will just be me giving my thoughts about Shield Knight, about different aspects, about combat in BPSR so far. A little bit from my background, I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV as my main MMORPG for almost 4 years now. I started World of Warcraft about a month ago and was playing that quite a bit until this came out. Otherwise, on the side, I play a lot of Warframe, I play a lot of Wuthering Waves, Genshin Impact, stuff like that. So obviously the gacha and anime style of this game called to me, and I've been playing it since day one. On its global release. We'll go over the skill tree, we'll go over your actual skills and what you should be using. I'll give my reasoning behind why I do my skill tree this way, because I think it's slightly different from what most people are doing. And then I will hop into my guild hall and give some actual hands-on combat experience. So keep it simple. We'll start with what skills you should be using. Of course, your top row here are all of your fixed skills, so you have to use these no matter what. You have your basic attack, Blade of Justice, your primary skill, Vanguard Strike, your ultimate. I don't know if it's actually called that, but everyone, of course, calls it your ultimate. Radiant Infusion. And then these are your expertise skills, so these are what you have to choose from. You can pick 4 of them, and so for our purposes, we will be using Judgment, Sacred Blade, Radiance, and Zeal Crusade. Now, out of all of them, Zeal Crusade is your most important one. If you're watching this video, you probably have a basic idea of how Shield Knight functions. So I'll touch briefly on what the gauges look like and how they function when we jump into the guild hall. But for now, just know that these are your basic skills, with Zeal Crusade being the highest priority for investment. So whenever you get books, you want to be putting them into Zeal Crusade first, Sacred Blade second, Radiance and Judgment are about equal at third place, and so is Vanguard Strike. All of these you pretty much want to level equally. You use them all about the same, or I should say they each contribute about the same towards your total damage output. Excuse me one moment. And then finally, your ultimate and Blade of Justice are the lowest priority for leveling up. With your books, at least, they should all be level 30. Reaching level 60 allows you to level all of your skills up to level 30, so at the bare minimum, they should all be. Of course, you can see the other skills I'm not using. I had leftover books I should probably refund, since I'm never going to use those skills. And of course, they're not leveled up because I'm not using them, so they do nothing for me. Alright, looking at the skill tree now. Of course, this first section, section 1, you have to fill out completely with your first 30 points. And then, as you pick shield spec, everyone I've said or talked to, at least in terms of damage, shield spec is just head and shoulders above recovery spec. So I have not looked at recovery spec at all. I started on shield spec and really liked it, so I stuck with it. Haven't really looked at recovery spec at all. So this is really going to be focusing on shield spec itself. We'll go through the major nodes one by one, talk about why I take a certain path in order to give myself more selection at the end. Of course, we are still short 6 talent points. These will come from doing your class trial paths over the next couple days. But luckily, as of right now, you are able to unlock the core and the most important nodes in order to make the rotation function the way it should. These last 6 skill points are just going to be quality of life stuff that will not change the build or the rotation or your priority in combat. So starting off, you should take everything in this first little section of 5 nodes here, because you'll be taking each of these first 5 signature nodes. So just going left to right. Resolve to return. Each time 1 stack of Lightforged Barrier is consumed or deducted, reduces the remaining cooldown of Radiance by 1 second. Anything that has to do with reducing the cooldown of your abilities is very, very good, because the more abilities you have, the more you can spam them, the more damage you will do. So because Lightforged Barrier is consumed whenever you take damage, this triggers quite often, especially in dungeons where you have multiple mobs hitting you. Bosses, not so much, but it's still nice, because Radiance is our only mitigation ability. So this is really good for getting that off of cooldown more and helping mit your party, mit yourself when you're pulling mobs in dungeons. Second node, Bold Fearless. When Sacred Blade or Judgment deals damage, there's a 25% chance to cause your next Vanguard Strike to evolve into Vanguard Hunt. Now, this node is nice because it tells you, this is the first node that tells you exactly what Vanguard Hunt does. It upgrades Vanguard Strike from dealing, I think, around 130% damage at base to 240% damage, while also healing you for 2% of your max HP, and granting you this buff called Indomitable Courage. Now, Indomitable Courage is the most broken part of Shield Knight's kit, because what it does is it will increase your haste by 3% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times for a total of a 30% haste buff. Now, this looks like it's not that much, but because Shield Knight builds a lot of haste as one of its primary substats, this matters quite a lot, and I will highlight exactly why when we get to the showcase. But just know that Indomitable Courage is constantly refreshable. Once you reach 10 stacks, you can still refresh it and keep it at 10 stacks for as long as you are able to land Vanguard Hunt attacks. This node here, while Zeal Crusade is active, you are guaranteed to have your Vanguard Strikes become Vanguard Hunt. So this, again, part of the core functionality of the rotation. Whenever Zeal Crusade is active, you are guaranteed to be getting this Indomitable Courage buff, healing yourself, dealing much more damage than the regular Vanguard Strike would allow. Divine Circle Chant. This node, the recovery rate of Holy Sigils from haste is doubled. Plus 100% means it is doubled. So the more haste you get, the faster your Holy Sigils will refresh. At base, each Holy Sigil takes 10 seconds to recharge once you've used it. So this makes them recover even faster. They already scale with your haste, but this node especially makes them recover even faster. And the more Holy Sigils we have, the more that will fuel our Vanguard Hunts and our Sacred Blades. This node here, when Sacred Blade hits an enemy to a target, it applies a Holy Mark to the target, and your Vanguard Strike or Vanguard Hunt can spread this to other enemies that are near the primary target. If we look at what Holy Mark does, the target takes damage equal to 20% of your attack every second for the next 10 seconds. So it applies a dot damage over time, during which every time you take damage from that target, there is a 10% chance that it heals you for 5% of your max HP. Now, this doesn't seem all that great by itself, but when we go further down the tree, you will see why we take this. So once you have these 5 here, you will take this node here, you'll branch it to the left and to the right. Now, this is where I go differently from other Shield Knights. A lot of people will skip this node and instead take these 2 nodes. This node is the shield when you cast your ultimate that can affect all your party members. Now, this is nice, but I do not think this is necessary. It is a ton. The shield is massive, but I don't think it's necessary because of the trade-off. You trade off because this takes 2 extra skill points to get. Down the road, you'll see why I perfectly use all 70 skill points. So if we took this, what I plan to do would not be possible. So instead, we take this node here. Your special, I don't know what it means by special attack precisely, but your damaging expertise, which is all of your skills outside of your first 3. So your expertise skills are Judgment, Sacred Blade, Zeal Crusade, and Radiance. For every 1% HP you lost, increases your damage by 1%. Now, percent-based damage is very, very useful because there's not a lot of it in the game yet. So any time, any chance you get to get percent damage increases, take it. So even if you're missing 1% HP, you're doing 1% more damage. And thanks to the way Shield Knight's barrier works, you are actually constantly taking damage to your HP. So it's very rare that you're actually at 100% HP. So even missing 1%, equaling 1% more damage, is pretty nice, and it can make a difference over time. But again, the majority of why we take this instead of this is because it allows us to take a different node down the tree. The reason why we have to take this is because we need at least at a certain point, if I can see it, it doesn't show me here, but at a certain point, you need at least 50 total points spent. So you need at least 20 points in this tree before you can go deeper. So taking this lets us reach that 50 total point spent so that we can go deeper in the tree and also save us 2 points down the road. So as we branch out to the left here, we take this node. Every time 1 stack of Lightforged Barrier is consumed or deducted, there's a 10% chance to gain a Holy Sigil back. This is a pretty low chance, but again, with the rate that you are losing and then gaining Lightforged Barriers, this triggers quite often and can come in clutch if you mess up your rotation. So this is just a nice skill, and again, it gives us access to further nodes down the tree. You'll take this node here, you'll go 1 node to the left, which is Zeal Haste. For every 15 points of photon energy consumed, which is consumed using your Judgment ability, the remaining cooldown of Zeal Crusade loses 1 second. The only photon energy spender you have, again, is Judgment, which takes 45 photon energy. So every single time you cast Judgment, you'll take 3 seconds off of your Zeal Crusade cooldown. And again, Zeal Crusade is our main ability. We want to aim for as close to 100% uptime on it as we can. This node is vital for allowing that to happen. We'll take this node in the middle, which is a Radiant Core. Vanguard Hunt grants a Radiant Core. If we click on this to see what it does. After 10 seconds, unleash a burst of holy energy around you, dealing attack damage equal to 500% of attack and restoring 15% max HP. So as you spam Vanguard Hunt, which you are when you are under Zeal Crusade, you're constantly gaining Radiant Core, reducing its cooldown every time you cast Vanguard Hunt, so you are constantly exploding with massive damage and healing your HP for quite a lot. This allows you to take this middle node here, you'll branch to both sides and down the middle. This final node here at the bottom increases the range of Zeal Crusade by 100%, so it doubles Zeal Crusade's range. And while Zeal Crusade is active, the effect of Indomitable Courage is also doubled. Indomitable Courage is that haste buff that stacks up to 30%. So that takes you from a 30% haste buff to a 60% haste buff while under the effect of Zeal Crusade. This is absolutely crazy. So strong, must have node. The node to the left, during Zeal Crusade, which again you are aiming to always be under Zeal Crusade, every Holy Decree consumed grants Zeal Crusade a stack of charge. I believe Holy Decree, again, the localization is all over the place. I believe Holy Decree refers to the buff that you gain from one of these. I think it's this one. The Blessing of Holy Sigil in the base tree, where when you use a Holy Sigil, there's a 20% chance for your next sigil consumer, so your Vanguard Strike and your Sacred Blade, to not consume. I believe that is what this node refers to. So when you consume that buff, you gain a charge. So every 3 times you get that buff, so every 3 times you get a free sigil spender, your Zeal Crusade explodes, dealing 6% max HP. Right now, Shield Knights easily have 100,000. So this is 6,000 damage in an AoE around you. Very, very strong node, especially for dungeons, and it's just extra damage. You'll take this to get to the bottom, which is after the Radiant Core explosion, which is from the Radiant Core node. Your Sacred Blade gains double damage, plus 100%, double its damage for 20 seconds. Holds up to 3 charges. Casting Sacred Blade consumes 1 charge. So essentially, with the rate that you gain Holy Sigils and the free uses of sigils, the majority of these will be buffed, because again, in the meantime, you are spamming Vanguard Hunt under a Zeal Crusade, which is constantly giving you Radiant Cores. So this node, again, Sacred Blade is probably your second biggest damage dealer. So doubling its damage is quite massive. On the other side, this is a passive thing. Part of the base node is when you cast Judgment. See, where is it? When you cast Judgment every 30 seconds, or I should say once every 30 seconds, you generate a Divine Circle, which is an AoE on the ground that will give you some passive healing. This node also gives you a % mitigation, again, which Shield Knight really, really needs. So although you're spamming Judgment, when you at least begin an encounter, you can choose when to put it down. Pulling mobs. Mob packs take about 30 seconds in between, so your first mob pack, make sure you place this Divine Circle with your first use of Judgment in a good location so you can stay inside of it, get that 10% mitigation. That 10% can do a lot to help your healers keep you alive. You'll take the Strength node, and then finally, when Judgment deals damage, the target takes double damage from Holy Sigil for the next 5 seconds. Again, I believe this Holy Sigil is actually referring to the Holy Mark. It's either that, or it means your next Holy Sigil spender, which again, you would want to use this buffed on Sacred Blade, which again is why I do my rotation in a certain way, because again, it's either your next Holy Sigil spender, or it's the DOT from Holy Mark. Either way, more damage. Capstone node at the bottom. We want to take it. So that's everything in the middle. Let's go back up to the side. After we take the Holy Radiance node, we'll go Endurance node. We'll go down here. Overflow Heal Wall. Again, this isn't too big a deal, but it allows us to branch, take a shortcut to some very, very good nodes down the tree. The first one, after you take this Endurance node, being Sigil Pursuit. Damage dealt by Vanguard Hunt and Sacred Blade, which are your 2 filler spammers. With the, again, I believe it means Holy Mark, not Holy Sigil. So enemies that have your dot on them take 20% more damage from your Vanguard Hunt and your Sacred Blade. Again, % damage increases are very big because we don't have a lot of them right now. And stats and damage in this game suffers from diminishing returns. So anything that gives you % damage right now is massive. It's very, very, very powerful. You'll take this node here, which allows you to take Ultimate Conquest, increasing Zeal Crusade's damage by 50%. This is why Zeal Crusade is so strong. Not only is its range buffed, its damage is buffed, its haste buff under Radiant Core, and Vanguard Hunt is massively buffed. Now its damage is also increased by 50%. Very, very, very strong. Very important node. Now, for the last 6 that we don't have access to yet, after we take this node, we will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So these 3 will be our last remaining nodes taken. So this one here, light energy cap plus 20. You normally only have 100 light energy. This makes you go up to 120. Makes it a little bit easier to not over cap. You aren't able to gain any full usages, or yeah, I don't believe you're able to actually gain any usages of stocking up, because Judgment still takes 45 energy. So 45, 90, yeah, you wouldn't gain an extra usage by just saving it, but it makes it a little easier to not overcap. And, oh wait, I forgot this part here. When you have at least 5 stacks of Lightforged Barrier, which you do most of the time, Judgment actually consumes 5 less light energy. So I take that back. You do actually go from being able to stock up only 2 Judgments to being able to stock up 3 Judgments in a row, because you'll have a total of 120 energy, and each Judgment will only take 40 energy. So this makes maintaining Judgment and not overcapping on your light energy much easier. Again, I apologize, don't have a script, so stuff like that will happen. Thank you for bearing with me. Next, node Determination Slash. Again, very decent node, not super crazy. When you have 5 or fewer stacks of Lightforged Barrier, taking damage will no longer reduce its stacks. This is very nice because we need at least 8 stacks in order to cast Zeal Crusade at its max duration. So we want to always have at least 8 stacks before we use Zeal Crusade, so this will help us in maintaining those Lightforged Barrier stacks and maintaining our massive max HP pool. The second part is when you have more than 5 stacks, normally taking any damage is guaranteed to lose you a stack. Now you have a 50% chance to instead not lose that stack. So that is very nice versus bosses, especially. During mobs, you still might notice you lose quite a bit because you have lots of mobs hitting you. But at least for bossing, this will be very nice in order to maintain a comfortable stack of Lightforged Barrier. And finally, the last node, while you have Radiant Shield, which is your kind of third gauge that you have as Shield Knight, you gain 5% light bonus. Again, percent bonuses, especially elemental-based ones now, very, very strong to throw in your damage calculation. So this node will massively, massively boost your damage because Zeal Crusade, Sacred Blade, Judgment, Vanguard Hunt, Radiant Core all deal light damage. So the vast majority of your damage is light. So having this 5% light bonus will be quite nice. So that is the tree. That is why we take this extra, because if we wasted an extra 2 points, we would not be able to get one of these. So we'd have to give up one of these. And both of them are good. And in my opinion, having both of these is worth the trade-off of not having this shield every minute. I could be wrong. This could be very clutch. The reason why, because you want to use your ult off cooldown. You don't really want to save it for a shield. Because when you do use your ult, you gain massively increased light energy and Holy Sigil regen, which massively increase your DPS under that window. So you don't really want to save your ultimate for this specifically, but if there is ever a niche scenario, maybe in the raid, there's a particularly difficult raid wide, I would simply sacrifice probably this node. I'd probably get rid of the damage bonus to keep consistent barrier. So I'd probably sacrifice these 2 nodes in order to take these 2 right here so that I can get that shield on the ultimate. The rest of these nodes, this one's nice to have. Again, not, in my opinion, with this node, this is not a necessity. Otherwise, this can be pretty nice. All of these are just healing. This is not that good. This is all just healing bonus stuff, which, again, no big deal. Don't really care about healing bonus. Healers are plenty strong as is. And once you get your stacks of Lightforged Barrier and Radiant Shield rolling, you will be very, very difficult to kill. So that is the talent tree. Now I will hop into the guild hall. Shout out to Winter, best guild. Been with them probably since day 2 or 3. They've been awesome. Done a lot of content together, helped each other out. All that stuff. Great, great guild. Some other people are practicing their rotation here. Before we go, we'll take a quick look at my current stats. Modest 12,700 ability score. Good amount of strength, good amount of haste, and mastery. Again, haste, mastery are your 2 main skills. Don't really need crit because a lot of our damage is consistent. We don't really have a lot of huge spiking cooldowns that we want to crit, so we don't really care about crit. Of course, don't really care about versatility. Luck is nice because it does affect the trigger rate of this node. So having a higher chance to proc this is pretty nice. So having a bit of luck on your gear, not the end of the world by any means. I do have Jungle Goblin giving me 7% strength, and Olvera. I was lucky enough to pull in Olvera, and I farmed out the hunting log to get the books, or I should say the chests to open the rare materials for her, and so she's giving me an extra 6% strength. So my strength might be a bit high compared to others. I also have decent rolls. I have strength here, resistance, armor, attack percent here, attack percent, resistant, strength percent. So I want more, because I have so much percent strength from my Battle Imagines. I would love to farm better gear that has damage bonus versus bosses is nice. Otherwise, I do have, a good amount of attack and percent strength rolls with some damage built in. My substats, again, pretty good across the board. Weapon, triple desirable. Helmet, again, having a little bit of luck is good, so I consider this, a good triple roll. Chest, good triple roll. Gauntlets, again, a little bit of luck doesn't hurt, so good triple roll here. I need to finish refining that. Crit, this is wasted, and it's the max roll, so need to replace these eventually. Earrings, again, a little bit of luck. Necklace, need to get rid of that crit, but otherwise, this is probably a bit too much luck. But it has a good attack percent, so we take those. Again, really good ring, really good bracelet, besides the substats, besides the purple line. Armband, again, pretty good. Need to finish re-rolling it. And then again, a little bit too much luck. But again, damage bonus versus bosses, which again, any source of damage bonus you can get is pretty nice. I will say, I think that this attack speed subset on the weapon is probably best because of the way it'll interact with how much haste we are going to get. So, with all that being said, let's lock onto the dummy. Doesn't really matter with how much you start at, but my general rule of thumb is to avoid overcapping on light energy first, because light energy is the main source of refunding the cooldown of Zeal Crusade, which we want to have active all the time. So if you are approaching overcapping on both resources, I would prioritize spending the light energy first, because you want to make sure that you are always reducing the cooldown of Zeal Crusade. Also, spending the light energy doesn't give you anything, but spending your holy sigils will give you light energy. So if you're already overcapped on both of them, spending your sigils will overcap you on light energy even further, which again is not ideal. So when we enter combat, I'll always start with a Sacred Blade to get my sigils on cooldown. Casting that Sacred Blade will almost always give you enough sigils to perform a judgment. So I will do Sacred Blade, Judgment, immediately cast my ult to get the regen for the sigils and light energy rolling. Then by that time, I should be able to cast another Sacred Blade or just filler with Vanguard Strikes to get 8 stacks of Lightforged Barrier and pop Zeal Crusade. After we are in Zeal Crusade, the priority is to stack our Indomitable Courage as fast as we can by spamming Vanguard Hunt at that point. If we get any procs, we want to use them on Sacred Blade, because you always want to use your free usage procs when all your shields glow on Sacred Blade, because it costs 3 sigils, whereas Vanguard Strike only costs 1. So you always want to use your procs on Sacred Blade. That is the other part. I won't really be weaving Radiance in, because you would save that for when you need to mitigate the boss. If it's going to perform a raid wide or a tank buster and you need to make sure you survive, that is what you would save Radiance for. Otherwise, if you're not in danger, you know you'll never die, then you can just use Radiance off cooldown for a little bit of extra damage and passive mitigation on the boss. So That being said, let's lock on, and here we go. Oops, see, I messed up a proc there. Messed up a couple procs there. You see my Zeal Crusade was dropped for a bit longer than I would have liked. Again, I'm out of Zeal Crusade for a bit longer than I would have liked because I didn't manage my procs very well. Messed up another proc there. That cost me a bit more downtime. Now we're back in. And you get the idea. So not only is our Radiant Shield here fully stacked, basically giving us another health bar of 110,000 extra shield. We have over 100,000 max HP. Constant AoE damage, constant healing. It is very, very crazy. Now, last thing I'll highlight, let me just get back into Zeal Crusade here, just to highlight just how crazy this ability is. Let's get it rolling. I'm just going to immediately stack as high as I can to show you guys. Bottom left there, Bold Fearless, that's the buff we're looking at. Boom, 10 stacks. We are over 82% haste. So that will take the cooldown of any given shield sigil from 10 seconds. Now you see when I use one to about 4 seconds on average. 5 seconds on that one. Oh, because I let them fall off. Let's see. I need it to be active. So as soon as Zeal Crusade is active, now you'll see when I use the sigils, they are a 4-second cooldown. Right there, you can just see if you watch my shields, I stop getting procs. There, 3-second cooldown, 4-second cooldown. So you'll see your sigils under Zeal Crusade with this haste buff being doubled. Your sigils are about a 3 to 4 second cooldown. So very, very, very strong ability. So, because we don't have a ton of like super long cooldowns or like raid buffs to work under, like in Final Fantasy 14 or World of Warcraft, you don't have a super static rotation that you do every minute or every 2 minutes. Your rotation is pretty fluid. It's based on how much gauge you're getting, based on how many holy sigils you're generating. You do kind of play around your cooldowns. Your ult cooldown, you want to make sure you spend everything before you use it because you're going to generate a lot more under its effects. Zeal Crusade, you want to have active all the time, so that is pretty much a no-brainer just to push it off cooldown immediately. It's your strongest damage output. Yeah. So, I hope this was informative. If you have any suggestions or comments, feel free to leave one down below. I would love to discuss or talk about why you think a certain node is better than this. I would love to hear anybody that's played Recovery. Love to hear their thoughts about that side of things. If anybody has been logging the game and keeping an eye on stuff like that, if you have a general idea of how much DPS people are doing on average right now, I was able to hit an opener, meaning about a 30-second window of beginning to hit a boss, where I peaked at over 20,000 DPS. My regular sustain, just hitting that dummy, I don't have the tracker on screen, but the average that I've been able to maintain on a dummy over 2 to 3 minutes is about 15,000 DPS, which feels really good for a tank. I think marksmen, like really well geared marksmen, are around about 50k sustained DPS. Stormblade I think is around there. I've been able to out damage Frost Mages in AoE situations, and Frost Mage has the best AoE out of all the DPS, and this spec can still even out DPS that in AoE doing Diamond Vaults. It's pretty bonkers. The only downside is that at the beginning of combat, you can be very susceptible to damage because you don't have your Radiant Shield, which is reducing the damage your HP takes. You don't have your Stacks of Lightforged Barrier, which is increasing your max HP. So the beginning of combat can be a little dicey, especially in dungeons with mob packs. So there are some tricks you can do, like casting Sacred Blade before you pull to get your stacks up. You can fish for a proc of the free cast, so you can bring into combat with you. So there are ways you can bypass that, but generating that Divine Shield takes time. If you don't know how that works, it was a bit more than my max HP because it snapshots differently, but it had about 110,000 in that gauge, and I had about 100,000 HP. Let's say, for example, I take an instance of damage that deals 50,000 damage. Well, that Radiant Shield takes half of that, so that Radiant Shield would take 25,000, and my actual HP would take the other 25,000. So instead of taking 50,000 damage directly to my HP, it gets mitigated by half, which sounds pretty good, but that gauge can run out. It can get depleted pretty quickly. We want to have as much of that gauge as possible because, again, we get 5% light bonus when we have it, or at least we will when I get that node in a couple days. But that is, I would say, the only downside of this spec, is that it starts out pretty squishy, but once you get going over the course of 45 seconds to a minute, you are nigh unkillable. So I hope you find this video helpful. Again, feel free to leave a comment. Again, love to discuss it. So if you have any thoughts about anything you could do differently, build this differently, talk about the other specs, tell me a little bit about your job. What have you liked about Final Fantasy 14 lingo. Tell me a little bit about your class. What have you been playing? Do you have an alt class? What do you like about the combat so far? I'd love to hear it, so feel free to drop that down below. And again, thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please share it around to anybody else you know is playing Shield Knight. Love to get some community camaraderie going. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Peace out.